Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right. I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea, because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven, you guys. We're so excited to have you here as always.
Whoop, whoop. Another fun episode. I feel like we're getting so close to 100.
I know. It's pretty exciting. What episode is this? 83?
83.
Yeah, 83.
So
oh my goodness.
I can't believe we've done this. I'm so glad we became partners in crime and we've made this coven. And thank you for all the listeners. And I'm just happy to see us growing.
Yes. And speaking of thank yous, I want to thank Michelle for joining our Patreon as a new subscriber. We're really excited to have you on board.
Yeah, we were both excited. I know Wendy found the news and shared with me. She's like, it's someone we're not related to. Woo! So we are a small but humble coven. So anything like that, it does mean the world to us. So thank you. And so for anyone who doesn't know, we are on Patreon. Currently, we're starting off with doing some after shows where me and Wendy just shoot the shit after we record, usually every single time. And now we're just deciding to record that conversation and kind of share our more uncandid side with you and just have fun to continue that witchy conversation.
Yeah. It's kind of like that thing. So when I was younger, I used to record my conversations with my friends. I know it sounds funny, but we'd only do it when we were having sleepovers, and then we'd listen to them to the next day. And I always thought I was so funny, even the next day. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's what recording our after shows is like.
That's so cute. Like I imagine it on one of those like 90s or 80s like talk back recording things.
Yes.
Like the pink one. It was marketed for girls because girls can't have silver.
Yeah.
But that's adorable. That was like your first time really doing a talk show. It was meant to be.
Right, exactly. I was like, oh no, I've been preparing my whole life for this and didn't realize it.
Yay, that's too cute.
Yes. And I am excited to announce that I am working on a guided meditation for everybody. So it will be on our Patreon, but it will be available for everybody. So even if you're not a paid listener, you will be able to listen to that. I'm hoping to have it up at the same time that this episode airs. So be looking for that information on social media. There could be some setbacks, but I always have to plan for setbacks. So it's like I could say, hey, I want this to go out right now, but there's editing and software things that we have to deal with. So, I'm hoping.
I'm excited because this is news to me, guys. I pretty much just heard about this the other day and I was like, oh, dang, it's happening now. Awesome. Because this is just like an idea we've shared back and forth. And Wendy's like lightning. When she's ready, she's ready. And she's always 2 steps ahead of me, but I'm always like running to catch up with her. So I hope that after Wendy's debut, maybe I'll be able to add to that. And this could be just something that we can both contribute together for our Coven listeners to just find time to like zen out and do some meditations. It's really fun editing. I feel like those kinds of things and getting to get to a more chill state where we're kind of, helping other people get there.
Exactly. Love it.
So yay for guided meditations. I'm so excited you're bringing this out, Wendy.
Yes, I'm so excited too. It was crazy because I did have a reading that had said you need to run with all of your ideas, and whether that is helping people in a verbal guided meditation or helping people with this. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's time. I feel the calling.
Yay. That's really cool. That's really cool.
So then I just sat down and I typed it all out and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to say.
Awesome. So, I can't wait to hear it. Yay.
Yes. I can't wait to share with everybody. What else do we have? Okay, so I came across this thing. I don't know if you remember, we have a listener named Joy through, I found her on Facebook, or she found us rather, on Facebook. And then she also has this show called Comfort and Joy out of Arizona. It's kind of this talk show. It's real down to earth, real loving, and real caring. And she posted this message on Facebook from White Eagle, who is from the Hopi indigenous tribe. And I guess he went on this vision quest in March and came up with this message for the people. And I thought that it was a really good message to share. So I'm just going to read it for you.
Awesome. Vision quest.
Yes, yes. He says, this moment humanity is going through can now be seen as a portal and as a hole. The decision to fall into the hole or go through the portal is up to you. If you repent of the problem and consume the news 24 hours a day with little energy, nervous all the time with pessimism, you will fall into the hole. But if you take this opportunity to look at yourself, rethink life and death, take care of yourself and others, you will cross the portal. Take care of your homes. Take care of your body. Connect with your spiritual house. When you are taking care of yourselves, you are taking care of everything else. Do not lose the spiritual dimension of this crisis. Have the eagle aspect from above and see the whole. See more broadly. There is a social demand in this crisis, but there is also a spiritual demand. The two go hand in hand. Without the social dimension, we fall into fanaticism. But without the spiritual dimension, we fall into pessimism and lack of meaning. You are prepared to go through this crisis. Take your toolbox and use all the tools available to you. Learn about resistance of the indigenous and African peoples. We have always been and continue to be exterminated, but we still haven't stopped singing, dancing, lighting a fire, and having fun. Don't feel guilty about being happy during this difficult time.
Oh.
You do not help at all being sad and without energy. You help if good things emanate from the universe now. It is through joy that one resists. Also, when the storm passes, each of you will be very important in the reconstruction of our new world. You need to be well and strong, and for that, there is no other way than to maintain a beautiful, happy, and bright vibration. This has nothing to do with alienation. This is a resistance strategy. In shamanism, there is a rite of passage called the quest for vision. You spend a few days alone in the forest without water, without food, without protection. And when you cross this portal, you get a new vision of the world because you have faced your fears and your difficulties. This is what is asked of you. Allow yourself to take advantage of this time to perform your vision-seeking rituals. What world do you want to build for you? For now, this is what you can do. Serenity in the storm. Calm down. Pray every day. Establish a routine to meet the sacred every day. Good things emanate when you emanate now. What you emanate now is the most important thing. And sing, dance, resist through art, joy, faith, and love.
Nice. Those are like nothing but wise words. A lot to digest there and super helpful information.
Yeah, so touching. I know when I read it the first time, I cried because that's how I felt through this whole thing. And yeah, so I was like, please, Wendy, hold it together while you're reading this.
I mean, I think that being positive and hopeful is a lot more powerful, and it does just spread more energy and spread more positivity, because when we do linger on the hopelessness, the defeat, and the negativity, it feels like, oh, what's the point? And it's just this like cycle of viciousness.
Right.
So yeah, this whole 2020 has been such an awakening, I feel like, spiritually for everyone. And to reflect on yourselves in this quiet time. I think everyone's reflecting, even companies are reflecting on what's essential, what they could live without, what they need to adapt. There's just, I think going forward, everything about the way we live is going to be different when the world opens back up, and hopefully when the world changes. And I would love to see a beautiful resolution to the Black Lives Matter movement. And
correct, yeah,
there's just so much going on, and it does seem like we all have a lot to work on, and being positive is a good thing to hold on to.
Right. And, you know, shining our light, bringing our spiritualism out into this movement in a positive light, in a happy light.
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want to fight fire with fire. We don't want to fight hate with hate. We can only create great change with love.
Right. Well said. I don't think we could say it better than him, than White Eagle. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, you're welcome. I have kind of an update. I know a couple weeks ago we talked about Mount Hebo, you guys. I know when I started researching Mount Hebo, and I guess maybe I should do a refresher. Mount Hebo's on the Oregon coast. It's where I said there was a building that the military owned, and it was possibly tracking UFOs and that kind of thing, just somewhere in the Oregon forests.
Mm-hmm.
And I, by chance, and it must have been just because it was in my search history, you know how Google will be like, oh, you might like this article. By chance, I came across kind of an update on it.
Nice.
And so I found out that the building no longer exists. There's just kind of this one small piece of the building there now. And there is a memory plaque of the building, and that this building that was there was used in the Cold War and was owned by the Air Force radar station so that they could track militaries and missiles that were possibly coming towards the West Coast.
Mm.
So
Interesting that the whole building got destroyed.
Yeah, I think they destroyed it on purpose because there was some sort of radiation that was located there. Now, I'm not sure why that was. But from what I understand, it was just torn down. So they used it for the purposes of trying to find the not military craft, but any craft whatsoever that was possibly coming into our airspace. And then I think it was in the 80s it was torn down, but I will be sharing some links, and if you're curious to look at it, one of the links that I'll be sharing actually shows what it looked like back in the day, and it was pretty amazing up on this mountain. And I'm not sure what was in each building because they don't actually tell you what was in each building, but it was pretty extensive. And I guess there are plaques up there now to, like I said, to just kind of talk about what happened there. And yeah.
Do you still feel like it's a place full of conspiracies and secrets?
I think that there may have been something that happened there, but who's to say? I mean, during the time that it was open, it was 1956 to 1980. And I don't know. I don't know what was up there. Really, I don't know what happened there. I can speculate all I want, but I don't think anybody really would know the truth unless we interview the people that worked there.
Right? It sounds like the makings of some sort of Netflix based on a true story, like Stranger Things
Right.
kind of tale,
Right.
where they could just stretch the truth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, good to know that there's been an update on Mount Hebo.
Yes. So fun times. What else do we have? Do we want to talk about retrogrades?
I mean, that's all on you.
Okay. I just didn't know if you were still interested in it or not. So if you are, I actually had kind of some information that I came across that I was actually pulled to. We had a listener who wrote into us, and well, I think I messaged back and forth with him, and he was like, hey, is there something going on in the world? Is there some sort of retrograde happening right now? Because I am feeling completely drained. And it kind of led me to look at the retrogrades a little closer. And I know we've talked about them a couple times already this year. But apparently we're in a situation where there are 8 retrogrades happening kind of all at once.
What are the dates, just so we know?
Yes. So I have all the dates written down, how often it happens and what you need to focus on during that time. So I'm just going to go over them just briefly.
Okay.
The first one is Uranus, and that apparently happens once a year. This year, it started January 11th and is going to August 15th. And this one focuses on your inner freedom, and relief from ideals that put us down. So anything that's putting you down or putting the world down, we're kind of focusing on and trying to fix and change.
Wow.
Right?
That sounds pertinent. And when does that end?
That one ends August 15th.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, people.
Yes.
August.
The next one, yes, August. The next one's Neptune, and that usually happens once a year. Mind you that even the ones that happen yearly usually don't coincide with each other. These ones are just lasting a different amount of time. So that's why this is significant this year.
So out of our, 9 planets, 8 of them are in retrograde?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Neptune, let's see, this one started January 23rd and goes all the way to November 29th. And the focus here goes to spirituality and inner tranquility. So that means looking for new ways, changing spirituality, maybe enlightening yourself, maybe going into a tranquil state and making yourself a better person overall as related to your spirituality. Next one is Pluto, and I guess this one happens every 6 months or so.
I love that you're mentioning Pluto because I'm just so upset it's not a planet. I realized when I said 9 planets, I was still counting Pluto.
Right? Well, I count it too.
I'm sorry.
I count it too.
God.
Yes. And this one goes from April 25th to October 4th. And on this one, we're checking in on your reactions to change and transformation. So check in on yourself. We're going through a great change and transformation in the world right now. How are you reacting to it? Is it negative? Are you running away from it? Are you running towards it? Look at how
I think there's a lot of
react.
that going on. That's funny that you mentioned that because there's some people who just are like, I don't watch the news. It's too this, it's too that.
Right.
But it's like, well, you can't just hide
from
all these changes. Then the work won't happen and the magic and the transformation won't happen. We got to go through that metamorphosis.
Exactly. Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is Saturn, and this one happens once a year. This year, it started May 11th and goes all the way to September 29th. And this one is a good time for manifestations and making your manifestations come true. Also changing your outlook on obstacles and things that might be standing in your way to bring about those manifestations. And also using manifestations to work on your long-term goals.
Nice.
Yeah. And then Venus, this one happens once every year and a half or so. And it started May 13th, goes all the way to June 25th. And I kind of talked about this one already in depth. So just remember that this one's related to love and matters of the heart and your relationships and how they fit into your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. And
Jupiter, I guess this one happens around every 4 months. It started May 14th, goes all the way to September 13th. This is a time for you to review your visions, your ideals, and your beliefs, and kind of changes in these systems could occur. So you may have thought your whole life one way, and now you're changing your mind because of things that are happening around you. And then the dreaded Mercury, this one happens about 3 times a year. That's why it's always so prominent. This next one happens June 18th and goes to July 12th. And this is where we have problems with communication, errors, misunderstandings, and mistakes. So maybe that's what I've been feeling in my bones coming, is that there's some other great changes that are coming. And I think it might be related to that Mercury retrograde.
That just makes me think of like the election that's coming up. And
right.
There's a lot of
right.
stuff.
The third Mercury happens during the election.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah. Mars. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just thinking about this year and I'm like, oh God, the election. This is a hard year.
This is a rough one. It's a rough one. Last one is Mars, and that one happens about every 2 years and 2 months. This year it starts September 9th and goes all the way to November 14th. And this one's about completing projects. So you can't start new projects until your old is achieved. So it's really about finishing and completing your goals. I was like, oh, I can only complete my goals every 2 years. I'm like, no, Wendy, stop limiting yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's just great for procrastination and
right.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So that's all I really had for retrogrades. It's a
It
lot to take
explains
in.
2020. It really does. Because I don't know, the retrograde is just one of those blanket statements that gets the blame, and 2020 has become a blanket statement of just what the fuck. So it really
Right.
makes sense.
Right. And every time I hear retrograde, I'm like, run away from it, because, when you're thinking about retrograde, it's about the appearance of something moving backwards, even though it's not actually moving backwards. And that's kind of how we are in life. Sometimes we feel like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but really we're not. We just need to learn more from those emotions and habits that we haven't gotten past.
I love that. And it's all about the mental state of mind,
Right.
really, and conquering that.
Right.
Well said.
Thank you.
I'm like, hey. Well, thank you for breaking down the retrogrades for us.
Yeah, I know it's a lot, and it's a lot to handle and a lot to take in. So if you need to re-listen to that section, take notes. I mean, that's how I am. I don't know if our listeners are that way. Don't take notes while you're driving, but think about it. Think about all the things that are happening. Do your research.
Yeah, put a pin in it to research it later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. I don't either. I forget.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all good.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I did prepare some questions for us today. If you want to get into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So I feel like this is kind of like our cauldron topic time, like old school, like when we just would break down some magic. So I was in the mood to talk about magic today. I really didn't have anything on my brain. And so I was just kind of scrolling through the internet, no inspiration, and scrolling through Pinterest. And I know I've talked about it plenty before, but I feel like Pinterest is one of those great places for witchcraft ideas to just kind of like brew, because there's a lot of really good basics on there and a lot of good starting points. Right. And so I just found this article that was talking about maybe ways why your spell isn't working. And so that was a great springboard for me to compile this list. And so, I'm just going to think of questions that you might want to ask yourself if your spell isn't working. Because I really think that's only the practitioner could really answer that themselves. But they have to be honest and examine, what went wrong.
Right.
So my first question that you might want to ask yourself if your spell isn't working is maybe you shouldn't be doing the spell in the first place. So you might want to ask yourself, did that need to be done? Were you manipulating a situation that you shouldn't have been? Were you doing it out of an emotional place? Or do you think maybe the universe would have like a different kind of path for you? You know what I mean?
What do you think this would be in regards to, like maybe a hex or?
Right? Exactly. If you're doing something like that where you're trying to curse somebody, you probably shouldn't be doing it in the first place. And who's to say that person doesn't have a protection built up? So that's another layer of like why it didn't work.
Right. Because it could come back right in your face. You're like, oh, I want to hex this situation or this person. And then bam, it reverses itself back to you because of their protection wards that they had up.
Yeah. So I think for a lot of new witches, you might want to really take it seriously when you're doing spells. There's a lot of stuff you could do before you even take it to that place. That shouldn't be your go-to. This isn't a Harry Potter quick fix.
Right.
So, yeah. Another question too that kind of backpacks onto that sentiment is, have you done the mundane work first? So like when I thought of that, it was thinking like prosperity magic. Maybe you're trying to get a new job or break into a new career, but have you done the work to even break into that career? Are you practicing? Are you working? Did you fill out an application? Are you working on your resume, your interview skills? Like you can't just sit there and expect the manifestations to just like knock on your door and like, this isn't Gandalf that who's going to just bring people out of his house and make a magical tale happen. Like you do have to do things in the mundane world. And I think that's kind of maybe your first step that you want to start from before you even begin your magic.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right? Because I think that shows the universe that you're willing to put in the work if you are doing everything in your power, and then just like asking, the gods to shine a little bit more favor in your direction.
Right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on mundane work and what that might entail?
I mean, you said it perfectly. That's exactly right, is that we do still have things that we have to do. And it's kind of like coexisting in the same space in a way. So you want to make sure that you, as a person, you're allowing your magic to, I don't know, to work together. So your manifestation would need to work together with your everyday life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Another thing that I added on the list because I heard you in my head tell me to add it to the list was, were you specific?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I feel like you're good at breaking this one down. So
Okay. So, I mean, I feel like I never really fully understood just how specific you needed to be until I started doing Enochian magic and Reiki, because those two things, even though Reiki's not a magic whatsoever, you still have to be completely specific with both of them. So, you know, you're not just saying, oh, I'm trying to think right on my feet to think of something that you might be asking for, but like, oh, I want protection. Well, protection, how? How do you want protection around yourself? Do you need it to ward off evil spirits? Do you need it to ward off negativity? What do you need it for? Are you being specific enough?
right, that makes sense. And even if you, I think, add to the power, like you're adding like these bonuses and plus ones and plus twos, if you're like visualizing the protection, like it's a
Right.
strong golden armor that's impenetrable, like really visualize it. And I think that will also boost the manifestation.
Right. And that's part of your intention. You need, the energy goes where the intention flows.
Ooh, yeah.
So you have to use those intentions and you have to be specific. And without being specific, the intention doesn't fully make sense. It might be just words. And do you want it to be, oh, I need protection? Okay. Okay. That's like saying, could you go get that thing from my drawer without giving any other instructions?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so I think the more specific you are, you'll get the results you want. And try to tie up all the loose ends that you could possibly think of in contingencies to add as a protection.
Right. I know it kind of puts rules on it in a way, but it's not. It's just being, you know, thorough.
Yeah, because when I do think about all these things on this list, I get kind of overwhelmed and I'm like, well, I'm really more chaos magic than I ever realized, because a lot of times I'm not giving a shit about anything but my feeling. And that's what I'm going off of. And sometimes it could be more of an inner thing than it is like wording or listing everything specific or that kind of stuff. So
right.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with these things too myself. And I've definitely had plenty of spells that have not worked. So
same. Same. But in return, if you're not specific, sometimes the magic could go wrong. I mean, like if I'm saying I want to take away some sort of past problem, if I'm not specific enough, does it in turn try to take away the past things that other people have created for me, and in return change their reality? And I don't want to change them. I only want to change myself. So you don't want it to backfire in that way either and cause someone else problems.
True. Yeah. You want everything to be coming in the right headspace and really be specific and think about it.
Right.
Another thing that you could ask yourself is, maybe you did this spell during a wrong astrological phase. And this can be either you didn't wait for the right time, if you're thinking about like retrogrades, the phase of the moon, the phase of the sun, the day of the week. And it could also mean maybe you waited too long to do the spell, where you were like, you know what, in 2 years there's going to be this really badass blood moon. I think I'll do it then. So it's like kind of could go either way. Waiting too long and not waiting long enough could potentially mess with your magic. And this is again something for my personal practice I rarely pay attention to, and maybe if I did, maybe I'd have cooler results. But I am really only kind of watching the moon, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, today's the day, I feel it. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
So I love the fact that you say I just feel it, because then you're going with your intuition, and that's how I I do mine as well. And usually my intuition and the astrological phases are already aligned. So
Mm,
that's probably how it is for you,
right?
is that you're already in tune with that without even realizing it.
Yeah, and that took a long time. I think there was so much uncertainty in the beginning because I was trying to go by the books and I was trying to be like a little Hermione Granger. And I feel like that
Sure.
holds you back and it holds your intuition back. And I really feel like
Mm-hmm.
having these discussions with you, Wendy, is what unlocked trusting my intuition and
Aw,
not looking back.
thanks. It was a
Yeah.
good thing, though, that you did have those books for a stepping stone, though, because it is kind of a stepping stone and you can always expand on stuff that you've learned.
Yeah,
So,
I 100% love the knowledge that you can gain from reading, and I think it's really
mm-hmm.
important when you're getting into these studies. There's so many avenues and so many things to research that it is awesome. You can really be a Renaissance witch and just dip your toes in a lot of cool areas.
Exactly. Or even learning from other witches. Like if
Hmm.
you are in a coven or if you practice with other witches, you can learn from them too. So,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't personally wait too much for specific days, but maybe in the
Right.
future I will. But it depends. It's just hard.
Right. Or
It's
when
hard
you're
for
in the
me.
moment of it, even
Hmm.
afterwards, if you're in the moment of it, check the calendar afterwards and be like, oh, look, I was right.
Right? Yeah.
Congratulations, me.
I feel like that's going to be a luxury when I'm retired that I can just be all month planning for like one moon phase or one day of the week
Sure.
and be like, okay,
Hmm.
guys, we're going to gather all of our herbs and make the stuff and put all this intention into it and then bam, do it that day. But it's
Yes.
never been that amazing. I used to kind of take weeks to prepare for like the Sabbats and the Esbats and like all the Wheel of the Year holidays. That would be
Hmm.
like my big thing, which is technologically, which is technically an astrological phase. You know, it's always some sort of
Yeah,
moon or sun thing. Um,
sure.
but
Or
I,
season. Hmm.
right, exactly. So that would be the only other time I really done it.
I love it.
Then another question you can ask yourself of why your spell is not working is, did you have spiritual help? Which I think is a valid question. I think some witches and just people in general do call upon their ancestors or maybe deities, elementals, spirit guides, anything really, gods and goddesses, to help them aid in their work. With evocation and invocation, that's like a really big step. And if you build a relationship, I think that that's something that can get stronger and stronger over time. And if you're doing the magic for the right reasons, why wouldn't they help you? You know what I mean?
Exactly. I wonder, I've been sort of been having these experiences where I think that my future self has come to help me
I
in
love
different
that.
spells and stuff. And I'm like, so could you spiritually call upon your future self? Or,
Yeah. That's like, I think your
yeah.
higher self kind of like really
Hmm.
doing some time travel shenanigans. Like, I
Right.
definitely think that's valid to call upon your own self because I hear that term higher self all the time. Like, oh, it's just your
Hmm.
higher self. You're connected to your higher self. So
Yeah.
if you can't trust other random gods, then trust your higher self.
Right. Who else can you trust? Just you.
Yeah.
And plus, who knows you better than you and who can call your shit out on you better than you?
And assuming they've seen the outcome, it's like truly
Right.
having an upper hand. Be like, okay, they
Right.
know what I did wrong, so let's listen to them.
Right. They're like, oh man, I really messed up this time. And you're like, don't worry, I got your back.
Hmm. Hmm. Also, you want to see, did you build up enough energy? So make sure that when you're doing a ritual, you should really be in the beginning, you want to start off by grounding, obviously, centering yourself and really building up the energy and amplifying it and manifesting it in whatever form you're doing. Let's just take candle magic as an easy example. Like maybe you're pouring your energy into that candle, into that flame, and just like burning through whatever spell work you're doing. If you're just half assing it, maybe not really paying attention or really putting your intention into it, that could be a major reason right there why your spell isn't working.
Hmm.
You kind of have to believe in it. And I think it helps the more energy work you've done because You know how to feel the energy moving through your body coming out of your hands. You know how to feel the energy coming off of a candle and maybe send that into the universe. Like the more practice you have doing that, I think the stronger it'll be. So if you're new, just keep trying and keep practicing.
I love that you're saying all of these things because it just reminds me that, like, just like at a job, what keeps a job running is all these different moving parts. And same with magic. This is what keeps the magic going and keeps it flowing is all these different parts that are already inside of you. So you
Mm-hmm.
just have to use those different tools to create the magic and to make the magic happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, Practice, practice, practice. I think that it takes a long
Hmm.
time, and don't beat yourself up if you're not seeing immediate results. I mean,
Right.
there's so many spells that don't come through.
Plus, it could happen in its own time. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe you've set up the process, but it's not happening yet because you're really not ready yet. And it'll happen when it's ready, when it's time.
Right? Like it could take a month, 2 months, a
Hmm.
year.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to have
Because,
that patience.
right. And your mind might not be in the right place. Your heart might be, but your mind might need to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Another thing, this one's hard for me too, is were you and your space dirty before you did your magic? If you go back to Magic Basics 101, people, we're supposed to be showering before we do magic. We're supposed to have fresh clothes. We're supposed to have a clean, swept place. That's why brooms and incense are all associated with witches. You should actually be physically cleaning everything before you even do magic in a space.
Hmm.
Do I do that? No, I don't always do that. I live in a room with cats. There's cat hair all the time everywhere. I like to sweep before I do stuff. Sure, I like to spread my salt out before I do stuff, light my incense. But I'm not even like a shower everyday type of woman. So there's times where I don't even shower before magic. So does this make me a bad witch? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think it makes you bad. It's just funny because, like, I even think of tarot. I use tarot in part of my magic sometimes, and I know I have this one coffee table that I usually do the tarot on, and it's always just filled with remnants of incense. It's just always looks dusty because there's leftover on there, and I just brush it off. I'm like, it's okay, it's all right.
I bought like a mini broom and dustpan just for those moments, but I still like have like I'm sitting right next to incense dust in the crystal amethyst, and I'm just like, eventually I'll blow that out of there.
Right.
I think that's something that's important to point out is Instagram and Pinterest witchcraft versus reality.
Right.
No one's altar is that fucking pristine and clean. No,
Right.
a working
Right.
altar that's not just set up to take a quick fresh photo. Like after you've done some shit, it's going to have wax, it's going to have maybe a cut on the wood, it's going to have the incense dust. Like it's just different.
Burn holes.
Burn holes. Oh my gosh, the amount of things that I've personally caught on fire.
It's so funny because when we first started doing podcasts, I didn't have one specific space really other than the kitchen to do my magic. And now I have an indoor space, an outdoor space, actually 3 indoor spaces. I'm constantly working at every space now in my home.
Yeah,
My husband's just been inundated with all this magic.
altars everywhere. I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things that really shocked me in my beginning witchcraft was like, okay, so like I have my altar cloth and then it's red for this Sabbath. I've got my red candles, and then like
Mhm.
they just start burning and dripping all this wax on my new altar cloth, and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? Like there's just so much you have to consider when you're working with all the elements.
Right.
It gets dirty.
Yeah. I
So
love it.
I don't know if I really helped expand on the cleanliness aspect. I think it's just, guys, clean your spaces before you do magic. Clean yourself before you do magic. That's the proper way. But,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes, again, chaos magician. I just throw that word anytime I don't want to conform to the rules.
Yeah. You're like, boosh. Chaos.
Dandruff. Take it. So, yeah. Okay. I can't always be right, but these are my feelings.
Yes.
Another really important thing is, did you meditate before your big release of energy or during a ritual? And did you actually get into a ritual mindset? Because if you're trying to manifest and bend the will of reality and become like this cosmic creator, you can't just half-ass it once again, kind of how we talked about energy and intention. You really want to get into a ritual headspace, whatever that means for you. So yeah.
You can't see me, but I'm over here pumping my arms up and down because this is my favorite. I'm
Okay,
like,
good.
I'm like dancing. You know that thing where you move your arms around in a circle and you're like, oh yeah, that's me right now. For my meditation, that's the most important.
Sand person arm pumping it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know this, you're really big on meditation. What do you have to say on this?
I just think meditation's a part of everyday life. I mean, it's a way to center yourself, ground yourself, and to create that energy. So all the things and all the work that you're trying to put into magic, how could you do without doing a form of meditation? Even if it's just for a minute, it doesn't matter. Meditation doesn't take that long, because if you think about time's kind of this construct that we place on ourselves, but really in that meditative space, time doesn't exist. So that's why I'm like, okay, you can literally just take 1 minute to breathe deep and create your energy and ground yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then that 1 minute, can grow into 5. That 5 minutes can grow
Right.
into 10.
Exactly.
So.
Until you feel ready.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll know. I mean, you'll feel it. You'll feel the breath and the energy inside of you.
Right.
And air can create a form of energy. All of the elements create some sort of energy. So, I would say hydrate. You could use all the elements. Use your water, use your fire, use your spirit, use them all.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Possible other explanation could be that maybe you used the wrong correspondence. So, like, what that means, maybe if you used herbs, candle colors, ingredients, those kind of correspondence. Maybe you should mix it up next time and try a different ingredient to boost your magic. Sometimes different things work for different people, whether it be like stones you're using or specific incense, whatever. There's so many correspondence and types of magic. So just experiment, especially again for new witches who may be doubting things. Just keep trying and keep mixing it up and get out there and learn about some new shit. Like, I feel like dragon's blood is something that's newer to me, but when I finally realized there's this cool shit that comes out of trees and it's like super powerful for protection, like, I'm all about dragon's blood. And there's just so many cool new things out there that you could be using and incorporating. So I would just say switch it up if it's not working for what you do have.
Yes. I love that you said dragon's blood, because literally in high school, when I bought my first incense, I bought dragon's blood because I just loved the name so much. And then when I found out what it did, I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I had such a weird idea about incense to me, because I think that the first time I saw them, it was just like in this kind of hippie store that had anime stuff. So I'd go in there to find Sailor Moon things. But then they also just had like a stack of like wizard statues and like dragon statues. And then you see incense titled Dragon's Blood. And you're just like, okay, guy, I get it. You love fantasy. Like, you don't think it's an actual thing coming from the earth.
Right.
But I love those weird shops now. That's where you get all the good incense for cheaps.
Yes. I love it.
Another concept that's really big in the magical occult world is the concept of initiation rituals. There's the idea that you need a high priest or a high priestess to initiate you, someone who's in the craft to initiate you, and then there's also the traditions of self-initiation. So this was one that I don't know if I really think is necessary or not. I'm not too sure, because again, I just feel like there's an intuition, there's a knowing, it's inside every single person. So maybe initiation is just to really push the on switch and be like, you know what, I'm activating this, I'm ready for this, and I can do this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't think you have to be a part of this elusive group and have someone tell you you're ready because it's been a year
Right.
today or whatever.
Yeah. You'll know when you're ready. You're the decider.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And
Nice.
I myself did a self-initiation ritual.
Mhm.
I've mentioned many times how my intro into magic was through Wiccan books. And so with the Wiccan groups, they say you have to study for 1 year and a day. And all you're doing is just studying and reading and learning and studying and reading and learning. I don't remember exactly how long I waited before I was like, nah, I'm ready. Like, I feel like maybe 6 months I just gave myself initiation ritual because a year and a day seemed just like too long.
Sure.
I could
Aw.
be misremembering that, but I think that's one I'm just not again too sure on if it's
Mhm.
necessary. But it is just another question. Maybe you haven't been initiated. Maybe this means you haven't taken it serious enough or really tapped into that shaman magician aspect.
Right. And I feel like that all goes with belief. So if you believe that you need it, then you would need it. But if you
Mhm.
don't believe in that fact, then I don't think you would need it. You would just tap into it.
It's kind of like all those stories, like The Wizard of Oz or The Secret. Not The Secret. There's some other book. I can't remember what it's called right now. But like where it's like the main character goes on a journey and realizes what they had was in them all along. Like Dorothy
Mhm.
could always go home. The power was in her. She just had to go on this crazy journey. So I think
Mhm.
for witchcraft there is this journey aspect, there's a sacrifice
Sure.
aspect, there's just like you have to like pay your dues before you can really be like a master kind of situation.
Right.
But I think that could come in many forms, whether it be you want to be like a dedicated student or be dedicated at the altar every full moon, like whatever that means to you. If you're putting in your energy, I think you'll be fine.
I mean, I think that goes with every aspect of life itself. I mean, if you want to be a good cook, you have to follow the same sort of rules. If you want to be a good parent, you have to follow the same kind of rules. So I guess I can relate it all to the same
Yeah, I guess so. Like just
process.
have
Hmm.
discipline
Hmm. Yeah.
and motivation,
Right.
dedication.
Hmm.
True. Very true. You
Hmm.
could put that to any kind of thing you do in life.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So that was kind of the main ideas that were trickling around as far as why your spell might not be working. I'm sure that there's 100 more ideas out there. Any that come to you, really?
No, I feel like you touched all the bases and I really loved everything that you said. And I thank you
Okay.
so much for finding these. That was really awesome.
Yeah, I hope that that works. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that honestly, I've fallen victim to probably most of these. And sometimes I just think you got to do what feels right for you. Um,
Hmm.
and we talk about this all the time too, but just journal, keep a magical journal. Like, what did you
Yeah.
do for that ritual? What did you like about that ritual? What did you feel during that ritual? And that kind of helps you keep track of things. You
Sure.
could even do bullet points, like bullet journaling for it, and have your own kind of system to just have like a shorthand for it.
Hmm.
But it's one way to really track, and then maybe in a couple months you'll realize, oh, that reading was right. This did happen.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I started doing since I do want to start having us give oracle readings to people over the past couple of weeks. Every reading that I've done, I've written down and gone back to and looked at. So I can try to familiarize myself with the process. So I feel like you're right. Journal writing is an amazing tool.
Right? I just feel like it just is the one way to really put down into my head what's going on in my magical life, because it's such a
Hmm.
weird internal process,
Hmm.
um, that it helps to write it all down, because it helps you memorize what's going on, it helps you learn, it helps you reveal. It's really just a helpful tool.
Hmm. Yeah. And then you can reread it too, because you can go back and you can be like, oh, yeah, I just connected all the dots. It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've spent way too much time like looking up to find the cutest journals and this and that. Like, I think looking for the perfect journal can be a great, it's a fun thing to get into, like the
Yeah.
stationary aspect of it too, to find yourself a cute
Right.
journal, have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, we sell some on our merch site just in case that reminds me.
That's perfect. You're right. We do have some cute journals with like pentagrams and different like goddess artwork
Yeah.
and with our logo. So
Yeah.
we've tried out our little journals ourselves too, and they're
Yeah,
fun.
I love them.
Yeah. One thing that I really like about the merch site that you were able to find for us to make our merch is that like everything's so customizable. So whatever design you like, you can pretty much have on whatever type of thing you want to get, whether it be a shirt, a journal, a water bottle, and then you can really customize the colors. So just since you're bringing it up.
Yeah, since I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, check out our merch. We'll link that down below in our show notes, as well as like all of the resources for today's episode, and our links for where we got our sources and things like that. And I think today we might be shooting an after show.
Yeah, I did have one more thing to talk about.
Oh, perfect. What else do we have for today?
Yeah, so we had listener JP NYC reach out to us again, and he was asking what our take was on the 13th octave La Hochi. So I thought I would take that on because La Hochi is kind of similar to Reiki. So I found out that La stands for light, love, and wisdom. Ho stands for the movement of the energy, and Chi stands for healing light of the higher frequencies or life force. And so I was like, yay, now I found a good meaning for the word ho.
Ha! You're like, I've been dying for a good reason to say ho.
Yeah. I was curious because I'd never heard anything about it whatsoever. So I really kind of put my 2 feet in. I probably read 5 or 6 different sites, and I was like, where did this thing even come from? What is it? What is it all about? And so it actually all started off with La Hochi itself before becoming the 13th octave. And La Hochi was said to have been created by Pleiadians, which if we go back to some of our older episodes, we've talked about the Pleiadians before. They're kind of in this, the Pleiades system of stars, the Pleiades star system. So, I mean, I think you talked about them on our alien episode, right?
I think I remember talking about them during like Betty and Barney Hill as well.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe during our types of aliens, yeah.
Right. And so the Pleiadians, they were a part of this kind of intergalactic war that happened supposedly. And with all the challenges that they were faced with when the wars were subsiding, they really wanted to heal the hearts of many. And so in order to do that, they came across, or they created this new higher frequency that you could tap into to heal your heart and heal your soul.
I'm a little shooketh right now that Reiki, you just like so quickly tied it to the Pleiadians. So what?
Well, like, not Reiki, the La Hochi, the La Hochi movement.
Yeah. Oh, this has nothing to do with Reiki.
No, it's just another. It's like Reiki. But I'm finding that there are all of these systems that tap into different higher energies, and they all come from different parts of the universe. So Reiki, this universal energy that people can tap into, La Hochi is another one of those universal energies and frequencies, but it's separate. They're from different energies and different frequencies.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Right? And
so this is all based off a Pleiadian healing system?
Yes, a Pleiadian healing system.
Okay.
And so I found out that, you know, they needed to create this to heal. And so it's just this other form of energy. So then I started thinking, well, how did it get to Earth? And so apparently in the 1600s, there was this guy named Lao Tzu, and he was a Chinese writer and philosopher. And he kind of had these ideas that love and harmony, he wanted to bring that about for the entire world. So he wanted the whole world to feel love and harmony with each other, with the planet itself. And when he was looking around himself, all he saw was illness and war and poverty for all the people in his community and for all the people on Earth. And he was kind of upset and shooketh about it. And so he came somehow to learn this La Hochi energy. And I think it was through a great meditative process. And so then he started teaching people in his community to tap into and connect to the La Hochi energy to constantly heal themselves and to heal those around them, so that they could fight off the illness and the disease and the fear. And he found when they weren't using the energy that it was prevalent. Everything was so prevalent. And he just felt kind of like the hardships that were brought about by this war and stuff was a waste of time. And why would we do that when we could connect to a greater good?
Right.
And so I just found that to be really beautiful because it still relates today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like, why can't we get our shit together? There's just a lot of greed,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of shadow,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of diseases going on.
Right. So that's what I found out about La Hochi. But then I started, well, that's not really what our listener was asking. He was talking about this 13th octave La Hochi. So I guess the 13th octave was kind of coined in the early 2000s by this group called the Council of Love, through interpretations of Linda Dillon. So I started researching to see who the Council of Love was, and I really couldn't find out much.
Right? Was that
but
some sort of like cult?
I don't know. I don't like to use the word cult because it made me think of the Intergalactic Federation of Light, which I guess could be a cult. But they basically tap into what we would consider alien energies and alien light sources, which bring about light, goodness and messages to achieve harmony and balance throughout the universe. Nothing big. So I don't know exactly who the Council of Love is. I don't really know much about Linda Dillon. But what I did come across was that the energy that you tap into for the 13th octave is these higher frequencies. So that could be God, angels, ascended masters, maybe the sacred geometry of the earth. And I came across this quote. I gotta see if I can find it really quick. Just bear with me.
Sure.
Okay, here it is. The 13th octave is a state of being in divine union, wholly and completely anchored and aware of being anchored in the heart of one, meaning that we're all one people. It is being in alignment with the heart, mind, and will of God. Whoa, did you just hear that?
I did. Where did that come from?
I don't know, but it sounded like it was in my room.
It sounded like I heard little voices.
It sounded like it was right behind me.
What? You just laughed.
I'm sorry, I don't know how else to deal with it.
Was that like a ghost?
I don't know.
Or was that like technology?
I'm looking to see if maybe my neighbors were outside. Just a second.
Okay. This is good. This is good. Check the mundane before we go to paranormal people. Before we assume there's a ghost, check for real people.
Nobody's outside because it's pouring down rain, which
okay.
I did not know. So
yeah, I don't think it's raining on my end.
It literally felt like energy was right behind me, and then I heard that noise.
And you were just like saying how we're all one.
Yes. That'll be interesting to hear how it comes out when we're editing.
I know. That was really, really weird because it just was very faint on my end and it just sounded like background noise. So I'm surprised that there was no phone that went off or...
Nope. I was just like, what was that?
This is what it's like hanging out with Wendy, guys. You never know. You never know. Right. Okay, so hopefully you get back on your track.
Yeah. Okay, so the rest of the quote says, the gift of the 13th octave is enormous. It is a gift of remembering how to heal the hearts of others, beginning with yourself. So that whole, like if you're in an airplane and the airplane is coming down, you have to put your mask on yourself before you put it on somebody else. It's that same kind of thing. So you heal your heart and therefore you can heal the heart of others. So, I also found out that the healing energy, so I wrote down exactly how I thought it would work from what I read. So the 13th octave healing energy kind of flows from the higher frequencies to the facilitator through their heart. And the facilitator then lays their hands on the receiver. And then the energy flows through the facilitator's hands into the receiver's heart and then throughout the body, which is kind of similar to Reiki, but coming from a different energy source.
It's interesting
So,
because sometimes I'll tell myself, whatever we're all working with, it must be the same energy, just different names. But now,
mhm,
when you said different source, like it made me think of just this infinite supply of all these different cosmic energies that you could potentially be tapping into.
right.
Because,
That's what
like,
I think.
ooh, okay. So, ooh,
Yeah.
this makes being a witch even more fun. But
Right?
like, I've been trying Tai Chi just on like YouTube, and
Nice.
the basic movement of just like how they have their wrists, their hands really relaxed, and they like kind of
Hmm.
go up and then come right back down. That's there's so much energy right there. Like,
Right there.
I am so interested in Tai Chi, and I've heard it's really good for Pisces and water stuff. So sorry to go on a side
Nice.
thing, but it's
No,
like
it's good.
it's interesting that all these different methodologies are taking you down different avenues to feel
Hmm.
energy.
Right. And I wonder if Tai Chi is the energy in yourself or an outside source.
Right, and they don't break it down for you on a YouTube video,
Mm.
so I don't know
Right, right.
yet.
Yeah. Interesting. I love that we're all drawn to these types of energies, that there's all of these sources out there. And I feel like I'm still learning so much, but being drawn to different things, or like in this instance, we had a listener who is bringing me to this. So
Right.
it's all kind of interconnected, and we'll get to the bottom of it, bottom of it someday.
Yeah, right, it's kinda like there's all these different creeks and rivers and avenues, but it's all
Hmm.
leading to the same ocean kinda thing.
Right,
Um,
right.
it is so distracting though because I feel like I rarely can become a master in one thing because I'm like, "Ooh, let's try Tai Chi. Oh, let's learn about tarot. Oh, let's do scrying and runes and this and that." And so like I rarely become like super good at one thing.
Sure. I think that might be our Pisces nature, because I've been like that a lot. Reiki is the first thing that I feel like I'm finally finishing and bringing to a complete close.
Mhm. Good for
So that'll
you.
be one thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
But I started really looking. I was like, maybe I want to try 13th octave because it does bring in those higher frequencies. I like to talk to the ascended masters. I have dreams of them. So why wouldn't I want to use this energy too? And maybe I already do in some form without having a name to it.
Mhm.
Um, I did find some benefits of it, if you don't mind me going over those.
Not at all. Yeah.
So, some of the benefits would be that you are receiving messages from the higher frequencies, as well as tapping into those energies. And what this would look like would really depend upon the individual receiving or conducting. And I'm finding that even with the Reiki energy, it's different for everybody. So, any of these energies that we tap into, how you receive the energy and how you experience the energy depends upon the person
Mhm.
and what they're willing to accept. Um, Another benefit of this is that it puts you into a deep relaxation state. It can help you connect to your higher self. It can help bring about spiritual awakenings and shifts in yourself and your views. It's kind of been described as a full state of bliss, which I think sounds amazing.
Right?
Can release blocked energies. Mind you, Reiki can do these things too, except for maybe tap into that higher frequency of those gods. It eases pain and mental issues while filling your spiritual body with light. It was all about light energy. And then another benefit is that what is released is transmutated into a higher vibration. So, what that means is it takes the lower vibrational things that are being released it to you and turns it into a higher light vibration and sends it back out into the universe, which I thought sounded pretty amazing.
I know. It's just like it sounds like fantasy type stuff. I'm like, "Wow."
Right. Right. And then apparently it also reweaves the broken energy fields in your body, kind of like surgery. So I know I've talked about with you personally, Sharon, is that when you're healing a wound, you need to take care of the trauma that was left behind from the wound itself. So I always envision the wound being healed up, so that your body can heal itself properly. And they kind of use that in this 13th octave healing. It's not something that I was taught through Reiki. That's not something they teach you, but it's something that I felt innately that I needed to do. So to read it in this made me feel pretty cool.
Is there like something that music wise that you could listen to for that, I wonder?
I don't know. I didn't come across anything. It seemed to all be through this one school that you could learn, that there were these other people who have been, or not ordained, but have received the ascension through the 13th octave. And so then once you've become ascended, just like in Reiki, once you've become ascended into it, then you could teach it to other people.
Interesting.
So
I'm interested to know about the school too, because sometimes I worry if there's a secret knowledge and a price tag, who's behind it? Is it for the benefit of the people or for the benefit of this person's pockets? And that's
or
just
the benefit for the greater good. So I know you have to charge something, but I feel like depending on what they charge, I don't know. Because I'm paying for my Reiki classes. You do have to pay for that.
I mean, that seems valid. You have to pay for a service. So maybe
Right.
that's the base of it. Like, look, I'm teaching you shit, and for my time, you're paying.
Right. Right.
So I guess I have to just be open-minded, but I'm always skeptical. I don't know.
Sure. Well, it's because we've been taken advantage of in our environment so many times. Think of how many times I mean, I know I've been taken advantage of a lot because I'm just kind of naive sometimes. And I'm imagining that a lot of people are. So,
Right. Like I've seen too many cult documentaries, and after I fell for one guru who ended up being completely insane on YouTube, I was like, you need to be more careful than just believing everyone who says they can talk to aliens and has messages from beyond, because they could be just someone with a YouTube channel. Like
right. Right.
So I have fallen victim, yes.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But such a specific question. Like, I'm interested because I feel like this is the second time one of our listeners has taken us to a specific organization, and it makes me think like, oh, are we supposed to know about this? Like, is this meant to be, this knowledge?
I feel like it was meant to be for me. I'd like to hope it was for you too. It's just tapping into those other energies. I mean, I kind of feel like I tap into those. I have tapped into those. I mean, I've been working with the Ascended Masters since I was in high school without knowing I was working with the Ascended Masters. So, I mean, I didn't put a name to them until recently, until we started doing podcasting. So,
I'm writing that down as a question to ask you in our after show. Ascended Masters.
Yeah. I did have some personal opinions that I kind of jotted down. So I definitely think that this 13th octave sounds like it's a great healing energy, just another something that could be added on to any other modality of healing. And when I think of healing energy, it just makes me happy in the first place. So just learning about this one kind of helped me to understand that anyone can really tap into these. It's just a matter of belief and intention.
Right. Exactly. Sounds just kind of like how the magic we were talking about.
Exactly.
Belief and intention.
And the fact that all of it is already around us, and it can open up a lot of doors for spiritual enlightenment and advancement. And so if you're on that path of enlightenment and advancement, you would want to tap into these energies. I like the fact that of healing past traumas. And I did have a question though, because it's like, as we're healing the traumas that with these special energies, what I want to know is if we're healing a past life trauma, if we're learning from that past life trauma, and it was our mission in this life to do that, will we still take the knowledge into our next life, or will it be forgotten? Will the feelings be there still?
I think you can end some karmic debt according to like the old Yoga Sutra texts that I had to study and stuff.
Okay.
They talk about karma, karmic debt quite a lot, and it gets really overwhelming. And it's the kind of thing you have to like reread these sutras over and over to truly comprehend, because they're like translated from Sanskrit and stuff.
Sure.
But from an Indian, I guess, perspective on the literature, it seems like some stuff you could truly heal and repair from. And then in the next life, you're going to have new karmic debts. Some of the same old stuff, if you never did work on it, of course, will be there. And then some stuff will just be attached to you randomly because it needs healing, but it didn't ever stem from you or your past life. Just the world needs to heal on that aspect. So karma sounds so complicated, and that we can get all sorts of karma attached to us. And it feels almost unfair when I was reading that.
Right. Oh, man.
So I think that the pain or the suffering or the debts, it's all just to teach you those lessons. And those lessons is what makes us smarter and stronger. But you do pay the price, the initiation of going through the bullshit of learning. So I don't know. It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I was starting to think that karma and the Akashic record are a lot alike, which we've talked about Akashic record, but for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's just kind of like the entire history of the universe is stored in this one area, and anybody can tap into it and tap into those memories. It could be memories of yourself or memories of the world or memories of the universe. And that's how these divine things are learned. So the 13th octave was translated and transmutated down to this one specific person. And then it's her thing or their thing, whoever is the one who learned it, to share it with the world. But it was most likely given by the ascended masters or the greater God to, given to this woman to facilitate to everybody else. Which is a lot like most of this spiritual stuff. It's just given through, through these higher beings. And it's in my human nature sometimes to be like, whoa, what is this higher being? Is it a positive being? Is it a negative being? But
is it just a man bullshitting, like, again, these cults I hear about and stuff?
Sure. But now that I've tapped into the Reiki energy, my mindset is slowly changing to these other energies. And I feel like for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me personally, I feel like there isn't a negative aspect to the Reiki and there isn't a positive aspect to the Reiki. It's a neutral energy. Now that I felt it, I know that it doesn't take sides. And so I feel like other energies would be similar, or maybe they would only be straight positive or straight negative. But I have yet to come across a negative energy like this, in this kind of form. So I don't know, but it gets my mind thinking and reeling and thinking about all the different energies that could possibly be out there.
Yeah. The force, baby. We all feel it. We all have access to it.
Right.
Like all these great oral traditions, these religions, like you were saying, it really all was passed down by some master, whether you look at like Christianity or even like the works of someone like Aleister Crowley. Like everyone's just saying they're tapped into these masters, they're getting these messages, and it's interesting to think we all have access to that, and there's different paths to it, and we're all so connected. It's just beyond me.
It's crazy because a lot of times when did you hear that?
I think that was just me trying to breathe in and I snorted.
Okay, good. I'm like on edge right now, I guess, because of the one noise that was behind me.
Is there someone behind me snorting? No, just someone on the other side of town snorting.
Oh, it's okay. All good. But I don't remember what I was going to say.
Damn it, Sharon, I'm so sorry.
No, do you remember what I was saying?
No.
Okay, never mind then. It's all good.
We're going to hate this when we're editing. We'll be like, I know exactly what you were trying to say.
I'm like, bitch, your memory. It was 2 seconds ago.
Yeah. I don't know. Should we keep going for our today's episode, or do you think we've kind of talked it out?
I think we've talked it out, unless you had some more questions. I hope we did these things justice.
Yeah,
I definitely am ready for an after show. So if you guys join us, I've got a couple of notes.
Yes, I know. I'm going to try to get more secrets out of you on our after show. So, all right, guys. So make sure to check us out every Wednesday for the usual podcast episodes. If you're interested for the after show, just check the link below to join us over on Patreon. Your support is greatly appreciated. We are still having our blog over at cousinscoven.home.blog. You can sign up for our newsletter while you're there, or check out some merch. The Coven is always looking for new ways to expand, and we love hearing from you guys. So always send in your questions or your research topics to cousinscoven2@gmail.com.
And you can always direct message us. I'm always there to write it all down. So
Wendy's got you. She's on the pulse.
May you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.